Good morning, my name is Vidya, and today I'm going to show you how to plan for a successful INM. In order for a INM to be successful, we are going to be using a checklist that was shared by Jim Knight, who's the instructional coach guru. And that checklist kind of keeps us on task of what are certain things that we need to do in order to have our INM be very successful. Therefore, I'm going to model a pre-planning session that you can engage in before you actually start teaching the lesson. Okay? At this time, I will be referring to the checklist, but I will not be actually role modeling the checklist. Okay. So the objective for the lesson is students will be able to divide objects into equal groups. So this is the pre-planning that I would perform the night before prior to me teaching the lesson. So right now I'm a third grade teacher going to teach this lesson in math tomorrow. Scene. Alright, so what is my objective for this math lesson tomorrow? I have to teach the kids. Students will be able to divide objects into equal groups. Alright. Which means I need to have my key points figured out for this objective. The lesson plan has the what, the why, and the how. So the lesson plan says that what are they going to do? They're learning how to divide objects, okay, into equal groups. All right, that's all what the what says. The how is they're using a textbook and doesn't look like they're using any manipulatives. And the why is the rationale. Why is it important? Okay. I think I'm going to have to tweak that a little bit. There's some vocabulary words, great, that I need to focus on. I need to focus on the word divide. I need to focus on in the word equal. I think I'm also going to focus on the word share, equal parts. I think I'm going to also throw in the words numerator, denominator, parts of a whole, fraction, because I know that I'm going to start to have to, at least at some point, maybe during the end of my INM or during the guided practice, I want to review those concepts that we learned before. Great. What are the materials that I will need for this lesson? Because we already learned about fractions, the numerator and denominator, I think I'm going to pull that anchor chart that I have up on that wall. I'm going to pull that anchor chart and stick it on the whiteboard. So then the kids will know that that's something that they can refer to during the lesson. Great. I also need access to some blank anchor charts because I know I'm going to have to illustrate these concepts so that kids can go back and refer to. I want to use some manipulatives for teaching kids how to divide it into groups. I'm just going to use unit cubes for this. It's so much easier. So I need to make sure I have access to that. The lesson plan says they're going to do a few pages out of the textbook, so I need to make sure that everyone has their textbook. We're also using some worksheets for the independent practice, so I'll make sure I have to make copies of that. I think I'm going to use a PowerPoint for this lesson. No, I don't think I'm going to use a PowerPoint for this lesson, so I don't need a PowerPoint. A video, I can maybe show a video to hook the kids, but I think I'm going to actually just create like a fake scenario so I can hook them into it. Okay, so I figured out what materials I need. Great. Now, it is a new concept, but I can review the fractions because you've learned about that before. Great. So I have to make sure that when I do the INM, the checklist says review prior learning. I can review it by just making a reference to the poster and telling the kids these are the skills that we need to be completely clear of before we move into this new concept that we will be learning. All right. Now, to emphasize in the how, I'm going to give my kids a rationale. I'm going to come up with this fake story, but I won't share how the story is going to end because then I'm going to use that same story as my think aloud for the INM. Great job, video. That's awesome. So I have the story. I have to just make sure that when I share the story or the scenario, I use the vocabulary words so that the kids know that, so that the kids know that, they're going to be seeing these words and using these words. Great. Then I have to figure out how am I going to teach the lesson. What does the lesson plan say? The lesson plan says that I have to model it through a unlock the problem in the textbook. I don't think I'm comfortable with them having the textbook open when I'm doing the INM. I want all the attention to be on me. Therefore, I don't think I'm going to go with that, unlock the problem, but that could probably be my first problem that we do as guided practice. So I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to use the story that I am going to choose as the hook or the rationale. I'm going to use that to use as a think aloud the scenario, and then we're going to completely solve it. I have to remember that I'm not asking kids any questions at this time. They're just watching me. Oh, because I need that to happen, I have to make sure that I communicate the MVPs to my scholars. They're sitting in slant, voice level 0, no hands raised. Voice level 0 participation is that it's independent. They're just watching me. Okay, so I have to communicate these MVPs or the ATM right before I start the think aloud. Right before I start the think aloud. Because when I do the think aloud, I'm going to be asking questions to myself, and I don't want them to think that I'm asking them the question, and then they'll start raising hands. So if I let them know ahead of time that, it's kind of like a question that I'm asking myself, then they don't raise their hands. Also, I think I'm also going to tell them that they're not going to be needing any of the materials. They're not taking any notes. They're not using the textbook, so everything should be closed and put on a pile in the upper left corner of the desk. So I have to make sure I say that. Close materials. Put it away. Awesome. Okay. I think I'm comfortable with how I'm going to get into the lesson. The next step is just for me to start practicing the think aloud. That's my next step. Seen it. Okay. So that's what I would do for a lesson prior to the day that I'm going to teach that lesson. It may have looked very tedious and, gosh, do I have to do it for every single lesson? The more you start thinking about it, the more you start following this process, the easier it gets. So maybe in December, a lot of these things come to you right off the bat, and you don't have to spend time scripting it out. But it is a really good practice to be intentional and pre-plan and think about how you're going to teach the lesson rather than having to come up with a different way at that moment, which may cause a lack of structure. Hope this has been helpful.